JORELL RIVERA, thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, absolutely, yeah. Happy New Year, new normal, new year, new you, new me, all that stuff, man. So Go Robo Now is Battle of Gods. That's right now you're on issue 3 of the comic book, your comic book.
Yes.
T-shirts on TeePublic. The comics available on Comixology, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Comixology, yeah. So JORELL, tell me a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you've been up to.
So I'm a illustrator based in New York City. As you mentioned, I draw a comic called Go Robo Now, Battle of Gods that I co-created with my friend Raheem Nawama. He's the writer, I'm the artist. I handle all the art and design for the series. So I'm the illustrator for that. I also do freelance graphic design and illustration, t-shirt design also. As you mentioned, we do have a TeePublic page. So yeah, I'm just, I draw comics, I freelance, I do all that stuff. Hey, there's some of my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just checking it out here. So you're the artist, and so TeePublic, that's like a t-shirt company to because I've heard of them before. It's for like
so it's like it's a website that, like, anyone can upload their designs to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's free to join, free to upload your designs, and TeePublic handles, the payments and shipping. So all you have to do is, create your designs, and once it's approved, it goes on sale, and TeePublic handles the rest. So we created a TeePublic store, maybe like in 2019.
Okay.
So we use that as a way to help promote, the comic and the larger Go Robo Now universe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a good way to also put out designs, put out different artwork. We don't put out the comic too frequently, but always like to put out new designs and things, to show the world of the comic and all the characters there. So it's a pretty great resource, for us, just as another tool to get our stuff out to people.
Yeah, I've had a number of other, independent comic book creators, artists, writers, comic book creators. And then there was another guy, Phil Russert, I had on, and he runs a very small comic and art expo in Suffolk. And so, I mean, I can pass on his information to you offline. But he actually reps a lot of indie comic book artists and creators and stuff like that. So that might be a good connection. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's a unique universe, the whole comic book thing, because it's easy. I was talking to him and a couple other previous guests. It's super easy to make a transition, like theatrical films to just streaming only and that sort of market but with comics, it's tough to kind of start off with comics and build a big brand, build a big, a lot of issues and a huge series and get it distributed. And it's one thing to jump on the whole digital platform when it comes to comic distribution, because some of the finer points of comics is actually having a comic, actually having it, collecting it, having a series, resale value, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we try to focus on, putting out the best issue possible. I mean, we're doing it all ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little, even in normal times, it was difficult. We both work full time in other industries.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're balancing that and, making our comics on, our off time. Yeah. And, we would go to conventions and, try to network with people to get our stuff out. And the pandemic has obviously hampered a lot of that. But the good thing is, I mean, the like independent comics and digital comics are such a huge, it's a huge thing unto itself now. Like, everyone, so many people putting out comics, and there's so many platforms to do it. We use Comixology, but there's people who use Patreon or Webtoons or other platforms to put out their stuff. So it's harder and it's easier at the same time. But the important thing is we want to put out work consistently, but also make sure that it's the best work possible.
Absolutely.
So we have our 3 issues up on Comixology. We just put out our latest chapter up in September, so it's on sale for everyone. And hopefully this year we'll be going out to conventions again in the summer and fall. We'll see. And if so, we'll be publishing. We print, have physical copies of our comics so far. And hopefully a new issue will be available for people to read as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I haven't been able to read them yet. I'm definitely interested, but I mean, just from the art. I mean, like I was talking with a number of previous guests, as some of the independent comic book artists and other in comic book convention folks. It's like this is the arena where you do judge a book by its cover. And
yeah.
But hey, I'll tell you, I mean, this looks fantastic. Go Robo now.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of touched upon it a little bit, but things kind of came to a bit of a halt with the quarantine. How would you say you've been impacted, by the current state of affairs, professionally, personally, creatively?
Well, I've during this time, it's hard to remember a time where I've actually felt more creative.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at home working. Up until recently, I was working from home full time. Now I'm kind of split between office and work, but still I'm mostly at home. And I felt this creative surge, not only with the comic, but just working on own things like my own stuff, and just wanting to getting ideas. I'm feeling motivated to create. I'm someone that's kind of a homebody in normal times, and having the excuse to stay home. I don't know. It's just I had just felt motivated, to create new work for Go Robo Now. Just drawing all the time. I was able to have more time to finish the last issue, because I was staying at home, and we were able to put that out. And I was able to put out regular designs up on our TeePublic page, and just putting stuff on Instagram, just random sketches or illustrations, to show people, to continue to build out that world. It's been unfortunate we haven't been able to do any conventions. I mean, I know some places have been doing like outdoor conventions, or Long Island, or upstate. I'd rather play it safe for now and avoid those types of gatherings. But I would have loved to see people. We would have put out a physical comic this year to sell people, because a lot of the friends that I've met and networking that I've done, the people in the industry and out, have been from conventions. Like that's where I've met a lot of those people. So that that's been the downside. But creatively speaking, I've been able to take advantage of this. Even to this day, I still I feel motivated. I feel I want to create. I want to put out more comics and more illustrations and more designs, and just want to keep that train going.
Well, yeah, especially now. I couldn't agree with you more. This past 9 months, 10 months was pretty much the elite for me to just sit down and jump on the projects that were always on the back burner. Oh, maybe I'll work on this little passion project, when I get time. And then I had nothing but time, so I just started knocking out a lot of web series that I had in the can, and and released a whole bunch of stuff. And this podcast, of course, I mean, just about all podcasts and all TV shows are semi-virtual, if not complete virtual now, or hybrid virtual. But you know, just reaching out to artists like you and other actors, filmmakers, artists, musicians, whoever, it was just a matter of spamming the shit out of Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. And now, I mean, people were jumping all over it. Like, what else? Because really, what else is there to do except for what they're doing at home, or they jump on a Zoom for a couple hours and then they go back to doing what they were doing at home. And you know, even before the quarantine, it was, for me as an actor, I would, and I brought this up a number of times before on the show, that I was more inclined to jump on Skype auditions, video self-submits that you would upload to Google Drive, or, you know, unlisted YouTube kind of uploads to these self-submit video auditions, as opposed to driving all the way out. And now that's the norm. Right. And it's like, you know, that's what I've been waiting for. Now's the time to jump on this opportunity, where if we have time, everything that we were saying, I don't have time to do that today, or I don't have time to do that until next week, or maybe when I have a vacation, or maybe during the winter break. It's been a 9-month break. It's been a 10-month break. And that is what I jumped on. And like you were saying, you as well, like this was the time to, you know, draw, to write, to prep, to schedule, to shot list, to, you know, shot list and schedule and budget all these things. And so once the floodgates are open, it's like, okay, let's just start pulling the trigger. But even more so, it looks like your main distribution is Comixology.
For now, the comic, we, you know, they have Comixology submit, so any independent creator can submit a comic to them, and once approved, you know, they upload it through their system, so anyone can, you know, download the comic and read it. So that's what we're doing for now. You know, I've talked with Raheem about looking at other models to distribute. Mm-hmm. Personally, I started a Gumroad page last year, so I have like a sketchbook up there. I'm looking to utilize that more for my own personal stuff this year. But that, you know, that's an option. And there's other, you know, tools that we can use to possibly, you know, sell physical copies. Cause, you know, that's something that I've also heard from people, you know, they're looking to buy also physical copies of the comic and not just download it. So we want to, you know, cater to that as well. So Comixology for now, but, you know, we'll definitely be looking to expand. I mean, the most important thing is to, you know, we want to get the next issue out. So, you know, that's what we're going to be focusing on. And, you know, at the same time, you know, looking at other, you know, distribution models as we go along.
But like, you know, like you said, you've pretty much been virtual and digital from the start. So, you know, nothing's really changed as far as your creativity and you putting out this product, you know, it's Go Robo now and any other thing. With that said, do you start hand drawn, or are you,
I switched
how do you do craft? Yeah.
I'm pretty much 100% digital these days. I used to, you know, first couple of issues I drew by hand. I drew them on artboards and then scanned and finished everything digitally. But with the third issue, I switched completely to digital. Partially because of when I moved a few years ago and my workspace shrank. So I didn't really have, it was just more conducive to me it was better for me to draw digitally. So everything, you know, I usually do all the art in Photoshop. So I'll just do thumbnails on there and, you know, build the pages from there, and any lettering or anything like that will be done in Illustrator. So I go between those two programs. But everything's digital. You know, that's what works best for me. You know, I'll be able to work a little faster, you know, than I was before. It's just something I'm much more comfortable with now.
What is it, like stylus on a digipad or something?
Well, I just use a tablet. Just like I don't have like a screen to draw on. I don't have anything like that. I just have a little tablet that I use. My programs are old. I mean, I still use Photoshop, Adobe like CS4 from like 10 years ago. Like I got a cheap I was able to get it for cheap, like in college, and I've been using that ever since. So, you know,
look, I mean, it's not what
it
you
works
have.
for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
not what you have, but what you do with it. And
exactly.
from what I'm seeing, it's like you can't shit on an old, you can't shit on CS4 and an old, hand-me-down iPad based on what I'm looking at. So I mean,
Like and Adobe's, they're making people subscribe and pay monthly for like the new programs. So I'm trying to use this as much as I can, and hopefully it won't go extinct anytime soon. Otherwise, I have to switch to like Clip Studio or something like that.
Right. Yeah. No, I've been there where I eventually had to subscribe. I had it, for a while, and I tried to like, squeeze that, that old payment out for a while, but then it started crashing, and so yeah, I'd like get the new one. This 20, I think it's Creative Cloud 21 now or something like that. What they're calling it based off the year or whatever, but yeah. So what's next on the agenda? I mean, what's the new normal? What's the new normal? The new year, new you, new normal, hybrid new normal. What's next on the agenda? The next set of plans for JORELL.
So, working on issue 4 of the comic. That's going to be the big project for at least the first part of the year. We're working on the script now, so hopefully soon I'll start thumbnailing and drawing that. Other than that, I want to work on. So I'm looking towards the summer. There's a convention that I do every year, usually do every year, called FlameCon in August, and I cut down on the conventions that I would go to, pre-pandemic, and that was like the one of the few that I would still do. So like that's like the big one in the summer that like any new comics, anything like that, I would work towards, putting stuff out. So want to put out a next issue for that, and then I want to put out more like sketchbooks. I put a sketchbook on Gumroad, compilating like different sketches I did in October for the Battober theme on Instagram and Twitter. Chris Samney, he created a hashtag a few years ago where he drew like Batman themed sketches every day for like a month. So he, so I, me and like a ton of other artists, posted for that. So I put a sketchbook of all those things together. So I want to sell like a physical copy of that this year if I'm doing conventions. I also want to put out different sketchbooks, like transition away from selling too many prints of my work and putting out new, just trying different formats, instead of like having like 30 prints or what have you, have maybe a few, but like focus more on like books for people to flip through.
Absolutely.
So I want to put out more stuff like that. I also want to really start writing and drawing my own work. I haven't really, I've been drawing comics for a while now, but it's always been working with other writers. So, I've, writers have approached me to collaborate with them, and I've worked with them, and that's been great. But I was thinking it's time to like, create my own thing and just do everything myself. Kind of challenge myself in that arena. Like I like writing. I've done writing in the past. Fun fact, GoRobo Now used to be a website where we would post like movie and like comic reviews. Like that's the original, like it wasn't a comic book at first. It was supposed to be like a pop culture website.
So GoRobo Now was the name of your pop culture fan site. And then that turned in, okay, I got you. Yeah.
So I used to write reviews for it and like do illustrations for them. And then that went down and we just focused on the comic. But anyway, so just say like I haven't like written anything in a while. I don't know exactly what I want to write or how I want to do it. I think I just want to start small. That's one of the things like I know writers talk about. If you're making a comic, you don't want to start out, with like your 300-page opus on whatever. Like start small, a couple of pages, and then kind of expand from there. So I want to do, maybe 1 to 2 page stories or something, and kind of expand from there. So that's my big thing for for this year. Like I want to put out something, start putting out, you know, my own work that I've wrote. So, and other than that, just lots of drawing, anything that comes to mind, you know, basically, you know, anything that inspires me or just an idea that pops in my head. You know, I just want to, you know, work on that. And that's pretty much it. I just want to just create as much as possible.
Yeah.
That's really the bottom line.
I mean, yeah, I mean, especially this last year and this next year is I really wanted to like put all this free time into creating. You know, in the last 5 years, there were very few opportunities for me to focus on the short scripts that I had written, or the short scripts that were half written, or the feature films that were not yet complete. And you know, being a professional filmmaker or professional actor, you're always working on other people's stuff and you're continually inspired. But like you said, it's like at some point, when am I going to start producing something that that's my idea? And I mean, again, I brought this up on this show a bunch, but what dawned on me. So long story short, you know, I was an actor and well, still an actor, but not a lot recently, but I had delved into acting, and in the DC market here is all those crime shows on ID, and I was playing a detective in all those dramatic reenactments of all those different ID crime shows, Who Killed Jane Doe, whatever, you know, all those dramatic reenactments. And then it dawned on me, okay, I want to work on something. I want to work on something ultra low budget. Got no money to do it. How do we make some sort of, you know, super low budget web series, maybe on YouTube? And I thought, okay, what if Bruce Wayne went home, had a cocktail, and watched ID? What would those episodes be about? And so we started producing in the same production style, the same exact super low budget ID crime show, but of super villains. But then I said, okay, everyone's done Joker. Let's focus on like some super obscure, ultra obscure villains, you know, like not even B-level. You know how the MCU kind of started off of Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, kind of like their B-level characters, Black Panther, Black Widow, you know, B-level.
The ones the other studios didn't want to buy.
Right.
The leftover characters.
Right, the leftover characters. I said, okay, if those are considered B heroes or whatever, let's focus on like even more obscure, like C-level villains for this crime show, but shoot it exactly in the same vein as these ID crime shows. So, you know, me and some actors sometimes we'll sit in front of a green screen for 3-4 hours and knock out 10 different villains scripts. And so if each one of us knocks that out in a couple of hours, within a day and a half, we've knocked out 3 episodes. Not to account for like all the other like forensic sketches, which we might use some panels or some drawings as forensic sketches, or we might, you know, use, you know, some clips of other stuff as dramatic reenactments, archive footage, and kind of piece it together. And it's still very, very low budget, but it's like there are some very low budget crime shows out there. But it's just, but like you said, it's reaching for these opportunities. It's really like hitting that wall and saying, you know, it's time for me to work on something of my own, even though I didn't create DC or Marvel, but it was like this kind of like this spark of an idea. Like I am kind of creating this as a fan series or as a parody, however you want to call it. But it is something that I'm creating and making and producing and shooting myself and editing myself. I mean, of course I have completely 100% original screenplays, but to what extent, how am I going to produce that? And which, you know, it's funny, I'm talking to, you know, you and a number of other comic book creators. Another kind of production hack, especially during this quarantine, is motion comics. So, you know, can't be on a set with 50 crew members and 40 cast members, but get together a couple of voiceover actors, you know, some sound effects, and somehow, you know, get some CGI done or somehow and put together these motion comics. Is that something you ever thought of, like taking your comics to another level, doing motion comics or animations?
I mean, maybe down the line. We haven't really talked about motion comics. I've seen those. I mean, one day it would be cool to like, do an animated series based on it, or like a game. Raheem likes to create role-playing games, like tabletop role-playing games. So he actually created one based on Go Robo Now with the characters from the series. Like just more as an exercise for himself and his friends, but that was something I was interested in. Yeah, I mean, down the line, as we kind of at least finish the story that we're working on now, it's something, we may talk about down the line. I did a mock-up of like what a video game might look like, or at least like the select screen might look like for like a Go Robo Now video game, just as an exercise of how that would look like. Just I guess kind of in the back of my head to translate into other media. But for the most part, I just want to do the comic, like, since I was like junior high school, maybe high school, junior high. I just wanted to create comics. I was never really super ambitious about like getting to animation or movies or anything like that. I just want to, create comics. So that's kind of just like the end game with that. We'll see as we continue to publish and hopefully, grow the comic and the fan base and see what comes out of that. But, we just want to, stay in our lane for now.
Yeah.
And, create that, create the comic and build that universe and, build that and kind of see what comes out of that. But, that's not, we're not really looking into like expanding into other, games or anything, or movies or cartoons or anything like that. But, never say never.
Yeah, no, I can't agree with you more. And for me, my whole universe has been, my whole career universe anyway has been, and artistic and creative has been film and TV. And so, 5-6 years ago, I started delving into acting because that still kept me on set, whether it be a commercial, TV show, film, what have you. Even if it's, a training video that only 10,000 employees of Pepco or BGE or whatever that company is, Comcast or whatever,
right.
Only 10,000 people are going to see this video. Still I'm on set and I'm still constantly absorbing, what the director's doing from an actor standpoint. I'm seeing what a director's doing so that later on, if I'm going to be directing something, I know what an actor's looking for. I've seen what other talented directors, creative and considerate and professional directors are doing to, complete the shot, complete the day, complete the shooting schedule, under budget, all that stuff. And then vice versa. And then having been an actor and been treated well as an actor, being treated not so well as an actor, I know as a producer, director, what actors are kind of looking for now. But in hindsight, it's like, if I'm going to experiment with all these different little things, I'm still falling within that universe of film and TV. You know what I'm saying? And like you're saying, like everything you're doing is falling within comic books. It's always been comic books. For me, it's always been, action movies. And I mean, for me growing up, it was always Superman, Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Yeah.
But being 3, 4, or 5, I didn't know jack shit about comics. I knew that Christopher Reeve was always Superman. That was the Superman to me, was that movie, Superman 1 and 2, and then and as things progressed, and then Batman came out with Michael Keaton, and then I might have started to gravitate to comics because of Michael Keaton's Batman, and start seeing, a grander universe within Gotham City and Batman and what he's dealing with and all these crazy characters and blah blah blah. But for me, it was always the movies first. And there's this funny kind of mindset that I have, and I've always gotten to like these little heated discussions where for example, and spoiler alert, but for example, Gwen Stacy died in the Andrew McCarthy Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
And someone was telling me like, oh, but that's how it happened in the comics. And I'm like, bro, the comics have been rebooted like 40 times. Spider-Man's been married like 10 times, had 17 different wives, and not all at the same time, but 17 different people have been his wife at some point. And there's been 17 different Spider-Men, and there's like there's so many different reboots and retellings and what do you call it?
Reimaginings,
reboots, recontinuities, start overs, and all that stuff. And I said, listen, the only Marvel universe that counts to me is the movies now at this point. I know that it had to come from some sort of source material. But the MCU, there's only one Captain America. That's Steve Rogers, played by Chris Evans. There's only one Tony Stark. And that's everything that Robert Downey Jr. did as Tony Stark. That's the only Tony Stark. That's the only Iron Man for me, And I know there's this even more hell-bent alcoholic version of Tony Stark somewhere in the comics, but no, that's not the one not the one I care about, So it's like, I think that's the joy of these different mediums, and like for you, it's always been comics. Which brings me to another question. So is Jor-El, was that your birth name, or is that your artist name?
No, that's my mom. She named me after Superman's dad. Talking about the film, she saw that first Superman film, and she fell in love with that name. And when it came time to name me, that was what she settled on. She like anglicized it, she removed the hyphen and added an extra L to look more normal. But otherwise, that's where our name comes from. I'm right there with you with those movies. I mean, when it comes to superhero films or films in general, like Superman, that first film is like my North Star. That's a movie that I judge everything against.
The music,
no matter what, like that's my favorite of anything ever. Nothing else compares to it.
That theme song still gives me chills. 40 years later, I hear that and I get chills. I'm just like, that's the fucking superhero of all superheroes.
Absolutely, that's Superman. That's that's the icon. That's the ideal version of the character for me. And we've seen in reinterpretations for the character, whether it's in the comics or TV show, like everything comes back to that, like doing homages to that character. And even when when Man of Steel came out, they were comparing Henry Cavill's performance to Christopher Reeve, and whether good or bad, it was just it wasn't the same, it was different. I mean, I accept the other versions.
Absolutely.
I've had to accept in the last few years, like, we're never going to get that version of Superman again that exists, on its own plane, and any, further interpretations may, want to homage that, want to pay tribute to that, or may not, like Zack Snyder's versions. And that's okay. I've had to let that go. I like watching, I watched like Superman Returns in the theater or Man of Steel in the theater. And, there's a part of me, it's like, there's moments where it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm a 4-year-old again, watching Superman on Channel 11 in New York. And then but overall, there was just this like, it's not the same.
Right.
And I've had to realize it's okay if it's not the same. It is what it is. I can always go back to those old films, and they exist. It's not a bad thing that they're moving in a different DC or whoever's moving in a different direction with the character. But I love those films. I was happy when Wonder Woman 1984 came out, that they took a lot of inspiration from those Richard Donner films, and I was very happy to see a film that felt like it came out of that era. It was good that people like I'm glad that we're out of that age where like comic book movies are so dark and serious, and it wasn't
there's certain characters in certain environments absolutely that have to be within that. Punisher and Batman are known to be within that environment,
right?
But yes, Superman doesn't
like
have
that's
to be.
fine.
Wonder Woman doesn't have to be.
the Fantastic Four don't have to be, you know, it's like, yeah, not everything, X-Men, you know, it doesn't, everything, not everyone has to be in black and have to be serious and moody. Like, you know, we can have our serious films, but we can also have the films that are like, you know, more all ages and have a brighter tone and, you know, are more optimistic.
Wonder Woman 1984 was just outstanding. Incredible.
Yeah. No, I watched it twice on Christmas Day.
I mean, I almost did. I almost did. Yeah. So me and the wife watched it. That's the only superhero thing I can get her to watch is Wonder Woman because it's a woman and she's familiar with the character. But I mean, that's fine with me because it still falls in within the bigger DCEU, and I'm excited to see what they're going to try to continue to how they're going to try to continue to expand and so on. But yeah, that movie was just fantastic. But you're right. There was a lot of moments within that where they kind of paid homage to Richard Donner's Superman, and you know, those moments of, you know, flight and fantasy, you know, pun intended, but flight and fantasy and the things that were lacking. And I liked Man of Steel. I thought Man of Steel was good. Nowhere near as, but for me personally, like you said, nowhere near as good as Christopher Reeve's Superman. But still, I loved Man of Steel. You know, Batman v Superman. Preferred the R-rated version, of course, but
yeah, I bought the Ultimate Edition when it came out. I was like, I was, you know, I think in my friend group anyway, I was one of the few people who really enjoyed it, and like, I'll see a 3-hour version. I don't care. Like, it's I will see more of that. It was better, in a lot of ways.
So going back to your name though, was your mom more of a Superman and a Superman universe fan, or was she more of a Marlon Brando fan?
Superheroes. So you were saying like how, you know, a lot, you know, the definitive versions of the characters are like in movies. So for my mom, she doesn't really read the comics.
Right.
I got her to read Watchmen when that movie came out, but other than that, she doesn't really read comic books. Yeah. But we would always go and see, you know, any of the like DC or Marvel films that came out. You know, we wouldn't go to movies together that much, but when we did, pre-pandemic, but it was like, okay, there's a new Superman film coming out. There's a Justice League. There's, you know, Batman or Spider-Man. Like that would always be, okay, Friday night, you know, we're going to the theater. So my mom always, like, even growing up, my mom mentioning Wonder Woman, she loved the series in the 70s. She grew up watching Batman with Adam West. And she was always, when Batgirl joined the series, she was always excited in the opening credits when, you know, you see Batgirl riding on her motorcycle across the credits. It's like, oh, she's going to be in the episode. So my mom always loved the films and TV shows. Mm-hmm. So, you know, growing up, you know, I was exposed to that. You know, I grew up and, you know, was watching Superman and Batman films on, like, you know, regular TV, and my mom would always, you know, rent those films for me, you know, if I wanted to see them. So she helped me expose me to that work a lot. Even to this day, you know, she enjoys watching those films. When it comes to like fandom, that's you know, that's where it ends, you know.
Right.
Like even for me, like I read comics. I don't read them as much as I used to, but I follow you know, I follow the goings on, but for the most part, like when it comes to Marvel, especially, I kind of only care about what goes on in the movies. And now when like the TV shows are going to be on Disney Plus. So like Iron Man, Captain America, all those characters, I like them a lot, but I'm not going to buy their comic books probably, unless it's a specific run that, you know, it's getting a lot of acclaim or something famous. Like the Captain America Winter Soldier series, like those comics are great. I read those. But for the most part, I'm only interested in like, you know, the live action stuff. Like that's become the definitive versions to me. And, you know, the comics, you know, there's so much history layered on those characters, and they're constantly, you know, either being rebooted or the series is being restarted. So every 1.5 to 2 years, there's a new status quo going on. There's, you know, it's just, I'm not really interested in following any of that. Yeah. But, you know, you put, you know, new Captain American film on the big screen, I'll be there opening night.
Yeah, you're not alone. Yeah, it's exactly my point. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't want to like discourage people from reading the comics. I mean, like again, it is the source material.
As a comic book artist, I will never, you know, discourage anyone from reading comics. Please go out and read them. But
But no, and you made a good point. You know, I think my mother and father showed me that because, you know, it was a big film. My father was probably a big fan of it when it came out. But I know for a fact my mother was in love with Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
Marlon Brando was in it, so they probably wanted to watch it for him. I think my mom was a big fan of Margot Kidder. But I'm sure, you know, my mother and just about every woman of, you know, 25 to 35 in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s were in love with Christopher Reeve. Gorgeous guy, right? So that's probably why I watched it. But I mean, it's funny the way I can kind of trace back how I got into film was, you know, it was always like superhero movies. But then my mom would also be a huge fan of dance movies like Flashdance, which, you know, I loved as a kid. You know, she would always watch Flashdance, you know, watch it again and again a couple of times. And then Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta, those dance movies, Footloose with Kevin Bacon. But then somehow she ended up showing me Staying Alive, which is the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, right? So that's the one I was familiar with. And then I see in the credits written and directed by Sylvester Stallone, and I'm like, isn't that Rambo? And then she's like, yeah. And then you watch Rockies and Rambos again, and I'm like, Staying Alive, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, is basically the dance version of Rocky. The underdog dancer trying to make it on Broadway, and then you're like, oh dude, I love this movie, and people are looking at me like, why do you love that movie? And I'm like, well, a weird way that my dad was a big fan of Stallone with the Rambos and the Rockies. He probably saw written and directed by Sylvester Stallone, but it's also a sequel to Saturday Night Fever, so let's all watch Staying Alive. And then I'm watching it and I'm loving it for like a whole slew of other reasons. And then you start seeing how these are meshed. Chick flicks meshed with, you know, guy flicks, because one actor's in this and another actor is now writing and directing something totally different than he's used to. And all these kind of weird kind of meshes. And like you said, like your mom just loved the movies, which probably ended up getting you into the comics. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean,
sort of way.
I've, you know, I couldn't tell you when I started reading comics. It was just, you know, kind of always there. I know that, I mean, you know, the first pieces of media that I remember are not even comic books. It's the movies. It's also, I remember having a coloring book. There's like a sticker book and a coloring book for Superman. And, you know, and just seeing that. And I remember like Supergirl in like her 80s costume when she had like a red headband and like her hair back, and I was like, that's like an iconic version to me. Like that's the first version that imprinted on me. So I just seeing that, and then that led eventually into like, you know, when I was able to read and stuff, like reading comics. I know my mom would take me to the library, and so I'll read them there. And sometimes she would buy like, you know, we'd go to like a 99-cent store and buy like 3-pack comics, you know, not even from, you know, DC or Marvel all the time, like different independent creators. You know, like issues of The Fly or from that superhero that's like, I think Archie publishes now or whatever. But yeah, just like random, you know, things. And I mean, I think I still have, I have my comics everywhere. I think I still have some like beat up copies of like old comics that I had when I was like 6 or 7. But yeah, I mean, just watching, so definitely like film live action like that was like eventual gateway, because like I was, you know, enamored with Superman, you know, from an early age. So naturally I was inclined to read the comics, and it's just the colors and the action. It was just something that appealed to me, and you know, just imprinted on me in a young age. It was, you know, just got me to love them.
Yeah.
You know, to this day.
Yeah, I mean, talking about, you know, 1979's Superman. I mean, yeah, we could talk about that for probably hours, man. But
Absolutely.
really, that's just like the blueprint for the quintessential superhero movie.
Yeah.
And you know, you could see them kind of diverging, and MCU stole that. MCU took, you know, that. You can see a lot of elements of Richard Donner's first Superman in Iron Man, 2008's Iron Man, where he finally, when he came out of the cave, it was like when Clark came out of the Fortress of Solitude and discovered who he was, and the whole flying thing. And then he crash lands because he's not Kryptonian, he's human, and he ran out of gas, right? And that's kind of like a play on it. That's kind of like a modern joke of it. But really, in that first half, it was like, and spoiler alert, Clark Kent, with all his powers, could not save his dad from a heart attack. And Tony Stark, with all his genius, could not save his buddy that saved his life. Right, his buddy sacrificed himself and taught him a lesson, and he said, "Okay, well, you're gonna take my buddy." So he just starts strapping stuff on, and when he came out of that cave, it was just like when Superman came out of that Fortress of Solitude, and it was like, game on.
Yeah, I mean, what Superman did was establish the template for the superhero film. First of all, it showed people that you can make a large budget superhero film. I mean, nothing had really been attempted like that before. I mean, there were certainly TV films, obviously television shows, anything like that, but all that stuff was relatively low budget. So, this was a team where you had like people with real weight behind them. You had Mario Puzo, with The Godfather, you had these serious actors, Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, talking about how, your parents might have gotten to the movies. Like people, wanted to see that film because it had the prestige of these
cast list,
famous people and these famous actors.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if these people are attached to this, then, this is something that should be taken seriously. This is like a real movie. It's not just some junky kids film.
Yeah.
Richard Donner and all the people who worked on the film, like they took the Superman story seriously. Like we're going to make it in the vein of like the films of the 70s,
right?
Saying like The Godfather, all these films that came out, they're like these big epics, telling the life of someone. So and, it's just like those, but it's just Superman.
But like Christopher Reeve, I think was a soap opera. I think it was on a couple of soaps before Superman.
Right, this was his first huge role.
But I mean, you got Margot Kidder, like you said, Gene Hackman. You got a bunch of Mario
Ned Beatty,
Ned Beatty from freaking Deliverance,
exactly.
Gene Hackman, Marlon Brando, Margot Kidder. Oh, geez, who was? Oh no, she wasn't in it yet. Not the. What was it? Who the guy that played his dad was a huge actor in the 50s.
Yeah.
Oh, what was his name? I don't want to cheat and look him up. I think Glenn was in his name.
Glenn Ford.
Glenn Ford.
Name, right?
Glenn Ford. Yeah. I mean, all these freaking names. And so it's like, thinking outside the box, taking this material seriously, putting some names, putting some serious names behind this for people to take this seriously. And for Christopher Reeve to just go from, some TV soaps to like being Superman. And he was Superman.
Yeah.
Like he was the quintessential, what is it? What was it? Peace, Justice, and the American Way poster boy. And he nailed that role. He nailed it, but yeah.
I mean, it took a lot of, there's a lot
John
of pieces,
Williams,
and it just
John Williams behind the score, Star Wars, yeah,
exactly.
And that's where when I hear that theme song, man, I get shivers. I'm just like, ugh. It's like 40 something years old, and it's like one of the.
Yeah, it was released. It's like pretty much like 43 years. I mean, it was released in around Christmas of 78. So, 78. We're right around that time. Like by this time, people had seen it. It was already becoming this big phenomenon. But yeah, like I was saying, it just proved, it set the template for all movies to this day. How are you going to make like a big budget superhero film? You and like so many films, to this day, I followed like the template of like, you're going to have, you're going to cast like an unknown person, probably like a fresh face in the title role, but then you're going to surround that person with actors, look at like even X-Men, they did that, Iron Man, even Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot was, she was relatively unknown. She was like in a couple of Fast and Furious films, but she was still kind of new. But then they had these people behind her, and they had what's her name, Robin Wright in the cast, and Chris Pine, who was well known. So it's like it's just from the tone, from the style to the casting, like everything, Superman the movie, like just set up everything, to this day.
Oh yeah.
For how good superhero films, could be made.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't
Batman,
agree.
that was.
Well, look
also,
at Batman. Oh, Batman took like a big turn, but man, did that like was just another nail in the coffin for like, inspiration for not a nail in the coffin. That's a bad example, but another just another recipe, another element into that recipe for my inspiration. I mean, Batman, because then Superman 2 got all wishy-washy. They took away the Donner cut, and then they finally brought back the Donner cut. And then Superman 3 was more ridiculous, and Superman 4 was even more ridiculous. But yeah, Batman, Michael Keaton's, Tim Burton's Batman, 1989. That was like a whole new revamping of that recipe. Like, we can kind of get a little darker. We can get a little goofier. We can start playing with animation a little bit and props, going back to that Star Wars, how they flew cameras, how they flew that camera through, those prop sets. And they did that with that Gotham City, and really, like, Tim Burton is known for experimenting and thinking outside the box. Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, and of course, Batman. So Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, and
I mean, he was a guy that was coming off, Pee Wee and then Beetlejuice, and
was it Beetlejuice and then Batman?
Yeah, Beetlejuice was like 88, and then Batman 87, 88, and then Beetlejuice. Then Batman was like the next year. But yeah, he was again. It was like it was a huge. They were taking a big risk. The studio and doing this type of film, again, like they redefined,
Listen,
again, like the way Superman defined things in the 70s and early 80s, Batman, defined, superhero films for the next decade after that. Everything after that was trying to copy, that style of film. And again, like with Superman, they brought in, Jack Nicholson. It's like he's the big marquee name that's going to bring legitimacy to the project.
Huge name.
He was top billing.
Yeah, he was actually. He was, yeah. But they couldn't have picked a better guy. The Dark Knight of Gotham City. They couldn't have picked a better guy to write and direct that. And his choice, everybody was kind of thrown for a loop. His choice, Michael Keaton. Yeah. Michael Keaton nailed it. I mean, he was the quintessential Batman.
I mean, he was Mr. Mom before that. He was a comedic actor.
Oh, he was doing
Mr. Mom. He was a Beetlejuice. Yeah,
he was doing
comedic stuff.
But he was doing very comedic, outlandish stuff. Yeah, you're right. Night Shift. I don't know if you ever seen Night Shift, but that's one of his best comedic performances, where they run the brothel out of the morgue.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, hilarious movie. And so I even remember as a kid, my mom was like, "Michael Keaton as Batman? I want to go see it," because again, another reason why I went to go. My parents took me, probably because Jack Nicholson, Kim Basinger, Michael Keaton, and it's big superhero movie. Why not take the kids? So all these different factors. And then I'm just sitting there like changed for life. And they're like, "Oh, Jack Nicholson, he's an incredible actor." And I'm like, but no, for me, this is like, life altering moment here.
And there was something with those names, and then just the iconography, just that poster of the bat symbol, like in front of the yellow oval, like just the way that was made, it was just like looked shiny, and it was something like serious. I don't know, there's just something alluring about that. I mean, I was like 2 when that came out, so like when Batman Returns came out, that was the movie I was obsessed with. But talking about that first one, because I was like watching like especially this, I don't know. I've always watched, like, I'll go back to Batman and Batman Returns like all the time. Like I just watched Batman Returns like the other day, like for Christmas, And
that was a steamrolling engine that couldn't stop, because once Batman Returns came out, it was like Batman the Animated Series, which is one of the best animated series, and still stands the test of time. But no, you mentioned like that formula, like with Superman, who's a more happy-go-lucky kind of guy. The Dark Knight, that movie was much darker. Warner Brothers and DC kind of forgot that formula, and MCU picked up on that and figured, Iron Man is kind of like this military industrial, complex, anti-military industrial complex kind of weapons tech thing, and Captain America is like an espionage thing, and Ant-Man is like, the Ant-Mans are heist movies, and Thor's are like epic fantasy, Lord of the Rings meets Hamlet type of thing. When they all get together with the Avengers, that's the big epic thing. But each character has this motif. Each character's individual film has a motif. Ant-Man's always a heist. Captain America's always like espionage type deal. Iron Man, from what I can tell, it's kind of like, you know, that big tech military industrial complex type of
Right.
clashing of ideals, and that's how those things, and that's what Superman was, you know, peace, justice, American way, always make the right choice. Batman, kind of an anti-hero, much darker, much grittier universe. Wonder Woman is woman empowerment. They remembered that with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman giving it to a female director, giving it to a female writer director is what made that film. I think that was like another recipe for success. But Warner Brothers forgot how, you know, each character is within a different kind of environment. They deal with different, and you know, you can't have Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League all be like this dark, you know, gritty, you know, everything can't be just, you know, dark. You know, like the big Justice League thing needs to be this big epic thing, sure. But yeah, Batman's dark, but Superman's kind of more light, colorful. Wonder Woman is, you know, about women empowerment and freedom and strength. And I think Warner Brothers kind of forgot that formula, and MCU picked up on that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Marvel films is that they're the baseline is with the characters have to be successful. Like that first Iron Man film is successful because of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Because he redefined that character, and that's, you know, everything else around the movie is fine, but that's the movie succeeds because of Robert Downey Jr.
Absolutely.
All the Marvel films are successful because the actors that they've hired embodied their characters, you know, in a way that, you know, it defines them, it defines the film, and, you know, it elevates the material. You know, that first Captain America film is good, but it's Chris Evans in the role, and you know, he makes that character what it is. Same thing for Chris Hemsworth and Thor. All the Marvel, like you know, the one thing that Marvel was great, like in the early days, the movies were fine. They weren't like great. They were watchable, but they were successful because of the main actors. And you know, it was, you know, with DC for a little bit there, you know, they weren't giving the same thing. Like, you know, Henry Cavill as Superman, like, I just don't think, you know, the material that was given with was the best. You know, it wasn't the kind of Superman that you know, I mean, there's obviously he has his fans, and you know, I would love to see him return, but it just wasn't. He just didn't embody the character the same. It was just kind of one note and serious and broody, and you know, you can play those elements, but that, yeah. You know, me personally, that's not. I just don't want a Superman who's just like, you know, thinking about his place on Earth and is not, you know, also, you know, happy and optimistic. Like, you know, there's different notes to be played with the character. Where, you know, whereas a Marvel, you know, Captain America, you know, someone, you know, struggles with his place in the world, or, you know, trying to be a hero, but, you know, inherently he was a good guy and, you know, trying to do the right thing, and he was a romantic as well. That's the other thing, like, you know, the Marvel films, they all have some type of romance. It's all very well-rounded, you know, in a way that some of the recent DC films were not. But yeah, I mean, it all starts with the main actor. You cast the person, and, you know, you let them embody the characters as best as possible, and, you know, the rest will follow. And even if the movie is crap, at least you have like a central performance that, you know, is engaging, and you know, makes you want to, you know, revisit the film.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it definitely has to deal with the actors, definitely with the acting. Well, listen, if there was, as a creative, if there was one last point, one last bit of advice you'd want to give to what viewers I do have, but if there was one bit of advice, one last point you want to make as a creative, what would that be?
Don't wait for permission to do anything. If you want to write a script, post something, you want to draw a comic, you want to, make a film or whatever, just do it. It's easier than ever to create your own work and to publish it. So just do the thing. One of the best, I don't know if it's advice, but one of the best things I was told by a friend was, maybe, I guess it's 10 years ago at this point, like 2011. I was talking to a friend about possibly exhibiting at conventions. And at that point, I was a couple years out of college. I was doing some freelance stuff. My work was out there, but I felt like I wasn't ready to show my stuff out, go out in public and do conventions and stuff like that. My friend was like, just do it,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he didn't really go into it. He was just like, just do it. You have your stuff, go and do it. I was like, okay. So, I was, starting that year, I was able to start, going to conventions and doing that, even though, I felt out of place at times. And even, to this day, even, the last time I did conventions, sometimes I just sit there. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't have any good work. And, all the people around me are better than me. But the important thing is I'm doing it. And, doing the work and putting it out there, that's the best way to grow and change and, and improve as a creator. So, that's the one thing I would do. Just do the thing. Keep working on your craft, and you put the thing out. Maybe it's not good, or maybe you don't like it, or whatever. Maybe other people will like it, but you just move on to the next thing. You create the thing, you move on, you do the next thing, and you just keep pushing forward.
Yep.
To get better.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the trickiest part is winning the argument with yourself.
Yeah.
To just pull the trigger and just do it. Just put it out there. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times. There's been times where I shot something. I'm like, that looks terrible, and then I put it in there, and and then I'll be like, hey, what if I tweak it? Oh, it looks great. Or it doesn't look great. It looks okay though. Right. Boom, release it, and people like it, or some people do anyway.
And at least for me, no matter what I create or how much I may love it in the moment, once I revisit it in a few weeks or months, I'm not going to like it as much anymore. Like, so what does it matter? Just, which to me, I think is partially a good thing. If you feel like, what you've done before is not as good as what you're doing now, then, you're improving, at least
exactly.
So, that's also really important,
Absolutely.
So yeah, just got to move forward.
Absolutely. Well, JORELL, I can't thank you enough for coming on. JORELL Rivera. Is any socials, links, plugs you want to put out there before we go?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm as JORELL Doesn't Socialize. You can find me on there. Yeah.
You broke
just
your own
explain
role.
Real quick. So someone posted on my Instagram, recently, like, oh, you should socialize more. But I'm like, so first of all, it's a play on a comic book. Alan Moore wrote a Green Lantern story called Mogo Doesn't Socialize. So for anyone who doesn't know, Mogo is a giant planet that is a Green Lantern. So in the story, it's two Green Lanterns telling the story of Mogo, and the punchline is that Mogo's a planet. Because one of the Green Lanterns wondering why Mogo never shows up to the meetings. Well, that's why. So my name is from that. It's not just, I don't like socializing a lot, but it's really a reference. So, but yeah, people don't seem to get that, but it's a cute name, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, JORELL Rivera. You can find me on there. And of course, you can go on TeePublic or TeePublic store. Just search Go Robo Now. It's one word. You can find our designs on there, and search Go Robo Now Comixology to get our comics. Then that's it. Just, feel free to say hi. I'll be happy to talk to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. JORELL, I can't thank you enough for coming on, father of Kal-El. Appreciate it. It was a blast talking to you, man. And I'd love to have you on again, sometime down the road. I want to get,
Absolutely.
Some of my previous guests and have kind of like, a 3-way or 4-way roundtable ish thing with previous guests. So I'm always having, new people on one at a time, and then things of that nature. So definitely got to get you back on, but I can't thank you enough for coming on. Go Robo now. It looks amazing. And, I'll have to ask the wife if I can buy some comics. I don't know if she'll let me, but we'll see. She has enough. She actually does voiceover work for the crime show, for the Marvel and DC crime shows.
Cool.
And there's times where she's reading the script and she goes, "What in the shit is this?" We didn't read the Mogo.
Right.
And we haven't gone over any of the Mogo stuff, but similar things like that. Like, there's people. Is this real in the comics?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that really happened in the comics. She goes,
yeah,
what is going on? There's a whole planet that's a Green Lantern, kind of. It's those.
Yeah,
it's
you can get pretty into the weeds with it.
Oh yeah.
It's it could be daunting to outside people. Like, just you're talking about 80 years.
Yeah.
In some cases worth those stories. It gets pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at first, the S on Superman's chest just meant S for super. For Superman, and then they kind of delved more and they kind of elaborated more and stuff like that. But really, it was just it was astounding, because when people first read the Superman comic, they were like, "This guy can lift up trains. Oh, I got to read this. This is incredible," because no one ever thought of anything like that, until this one character in the 1930s. And then
it's pretty simple back in those days. He was a dude from another planet. The S was just he had the S on his chest because his name's Superman.
Yep.
That was it. And then as we went along, just got more and more complicated. Which is what I love about comics. I love the complications. I love the just all the continuity smashing against each other. It doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous. It's convoluted. That's why I read it.
Where the hell's Mogo? He doesn't hang out with us. He is a planet, dude. He's not gonna come hang out with us. All right, brother. Well, yeah, man. It was a blast having you on. I can't thank you enough. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do. The story.